processes and technology? Do you think technology is the most important thing, or where does it fit in that equation?
I'm in your camp, Ross, if everyone can hear me. I would definitely say we need all three, because as we're experiencing, the world is ever more volatile, uncertain, confusing, things coming at us from left, right and centre. And as Ross said, we need to transform our charities to be working, thinking, delivering more digitally to enable us to keep up. We owe it to the people that are funding us and the people that we're serving. And that we're perhaps traditionally used to thinking about digital as being technology, a new CRM, a new way of organising things, and some data, new ways of crunching numbers, when in fact what we're seeing is just focusing on the tools, on the technology is not delivering the change that we need. Instead, we need to be very much thinking about the people and the processes around it. And really, the dream is to be looking at all three together. So where 10 years ago there was a real rush for perhaps new CRM systems, new data management structures, the challenge was that then if you're looking at that, you also need new processes to better manage your data coming in and out. People need new training. We maybe need to be working differently together to enable us to leverage the full value of that new technology. So I'm definitely in the same camp as you, Ross. I would say, if anything, the drive I would be focusing on to improve your organisation's ability to respond and adapt to this new digital world. I would be focusing on people, and then processes, and then technology. But really for me it's about the sweet spot where those all overlap. So there'll probably be work that you're already doing in terms of where you might start with this to try to make it a bit more tangible. There's some things that you'll already be doing, whether it is looking at a new CRM system, make sure you build in time and effort and focus to thinking about what will change around your people to enable the best use of that new CRM system. What processes will need to change? What training will you need? Just implementing a new tool will not deliver the change that you're likely after. At Tilt, we spend a lot of time thinking about how your ways of working can be more digital, and that's certainly the aspect of digital transformation that I'd say has previously been least looked at, but can have the biggest results. So I encourage you to sort of think really broadly about what digital transformation means and look for opportunities where you can change all three of those aspects, people, processes and technology together. You can start really, really small, the smaller the better, and tackle all three at once where you can.
Brilliant, thank you, Eleanor. Right, that takes us seamlessly on. David, I'm picking you next. So, we're thinking about people. What do you see as the critical digital skills gaps in 2025 in organisations, and how can charities start to get better support around that?
Thanks, Ross. Big question. We're talking about big topics today. Hopefully you can see I'm behind this big screen, but I'm real. And I think, so I work for CAST. For those of you that don't know, we're a charity that help social impact organisations make the fullest use of digital technology, that's people, processes, the tech too, so you help you deliver your missions, be as responsive and as resilient as possible, especially in what you were saying, and in this really volatile, uncertain operating environment. And I think there's a real risk at the moment when you see the pace of technological change that's happening right now, the last couple of years, with new emerging technologies like AI just being thrown at us. There's a real risk that the digital skills gap across the sector, but also across other sectors and industries, is widening. And it's really hard to keep up. Right? It's really hard to feel like you're not going to be left behind and avoid that overwhelm. But if we take a step back from that and we look at the basic digital skills, so how you communicate with your colleagues using maybe Slack or Teams or even email, or how you're sharing files safely using cloud-based solutions because we're all working remotely or hybrid using Google Drive or OneDrive or SharePoint, or just feeling like you're doing safe work online remotely. These things are already quite tricky. And when you look at the UK workforce, 60% of the people in the UK workforce don't have those essential digital skills. So they're not able to fully grasp and be confident applying some of those skills in their work. And when we look at the charity sector, and you referenced the Charity Digital Skills Report from last year, there's about a quarter of charities that feel like they're still really poor when it comes to basic digital skills. If you haven't got those basics in place, you can't start building confidence in your teams. You can't really start engaging and adopting with new technologies. So that's a risk. Second big issues around data and data literacy. So being able to like capture, manage, and analyze data in an efficient way, so you can make like better informed decisions and not just kind of base things on assumptions. Super important. Right? If you want to engage with new tech like AI, which we're going to talk about in my table later, it's all about like the data sets you're inputting into these large language models, and that's going to determine the kind of output you're going to get. So if you haven't got clean, structured, robust sort of data, you're not really going to have a positive, efficient experience with these new technologies. I think the last one I want to highlight is, because I can see it wasn't on your slides, is around what you were touching on. If you think about a tech solution for a problem you're trying to solve, think about the impact it's going to have on your beneficiaries. It could be your staff, it could be your volunteers, it could be your like end users. So few charities are still like feeling confident applying user research skills. Like, what is it's good design. What problem are we trying to solve? Who are we trying to solve it with? Are we asking them? Are we doing user interviews? There's still about a third of charities that are struggling with that, and there's a real minority of charities, this is under 20%, that are talking to like marginalised groups in their communities when they're thinking about a potential solution to a problem. So ensuring that it's fit for purpose and it's aligned with those needs is so important. The combination of those things, just to wrap up, there's only 50% of charities now engaging with these new technologies that are happening so fast. And one of the reasons is because we don't have those basics in place, and we don't feel confident taking that leap towards more advanced skills. And there's a real risk of being left behind that. We can talk about the support offers maybe in a bit more, but there's loads of free support out there from the different networks that Ross introduced in the slides, some of the networks we run. You can get this digital skills training, peer-to-peer support, so you don't feel like you're on your own. You can get one-to-one expert support. It's all free, and I think it's just kind of shouting about it, knowing it's out there. And it's all through trusted networks. We're all working together to try and bridge that gap.
Yeah. Just as well to shout out, SCVO have got a really good digital skills benchmarking tool if you've not used that. So Maddie can chat a bit about it at our table, but one of the things I'd like you all to think about is, do you understand the digital skills of your staff teams? There's lots of things where, of course, they can use Word. We still have this weird thing in the charity sector where you must be proficient at Microsoft Word, and I see it in a chief exec job description, I see it in everyone's job description. What I'd love is that we get to the point where digital data design is thought through in every job description, but in a meaningful way. So if you're a program manager, do you have the user-centered design skills that David mentioned? If you're working with people in a food bank, do you have basic digital inclusion skills to support the people that you're working with? So we need to be thinking about it much, much more in the roles that people are doing, not just the kind of nuts and bolts of can someone answer an email or create a Word document. Let's do something really practical now, or chat about something really practical. Jenn, can you tell us, I guess, what you see as the key elements of an effective charity website? Oh, the lips on it, that's good. That was a very expensive laptop, so so you can tell us about what you see as the effective building blocks of a good charity website. I think for me this is important because getting staff involved in digital transformation can sometimes feel like it's a bit of an intangible, vague thing. There's often not a vision or a reason why we're doing these things, it's just a procurement process. The website's quite a nice visual representation of digital transformation that everyone can understand and get behind and start to own. So,
I suppose I'm going to throw the question back a little bit in that, what are the key elements of an effective charity website? Well, it depends on the charity. So a website that is designed for young people will likely look quite different to something that's been designed for over 65s, but I would encourage people to think of it in the same way that you would any other service, because your website is essentially a service and can be the gateway into other services that your organisation provides. So if users were not consulted in the development of that service / website, then how do you know that it's going to be effective? So that would be my number one thing, and that's what we do at Third Sector Lab, is make sure that users are involved right from the start of our projects. But in terms of maintaining that as well, it's really important that we don't see the launch of a website as the end of that project necessarily. It might be the end of a phase of a project, but we then move into our kind of analysis and tinkering phase essentially. We should never really describe a website as finished. It is a living resource, and you should be flexible and responsive to user feedback and insights. There are some things on a practical level that should be the case of any website rather than just a charity website, and in the exercise that I'm going to take through at our table,
We will run through some of those kind of maybe not so obvious things that should really be in place for our website to be effective. But content, the tech, accessibility, all these things are really important in creating an effective website, but the content part will be different depending on what the website is.
Yeah, we've got, Jenn's got some really good resources that you'll get at the table if you're at Jenn's table. We're also going to email them out afterwards, so we've got some really good stuff on.
We've got a checklist.
We've got a checklist that you can work through, so it's quite nice. Even if you've got a website, you've got no intention of going through a website redesign process, but actually thinking about how you can make the most of what you got. And it might not be a redesign, it might just be rethinking. I mean, a really nice example, actually, I'm not in charity, we're doing some work with a charity at the moment where we're really struggling to get new members, and I was like, okay, we did some user testing on the site, and they don't have a button on the website that says become a member, it's called become a partner, and nobody decided that it should be called become a partner. I was like, why is it called become a partner? I don't even know it was called become a partner.
Because the chief exec 40 years ago said that's what we call them.
Yeah, we call them partners, not members, but nobody in the organisation, it's quite a big charity. So sometimes just doing that simple low-level user testing will unearth the things that are really obvious small changes that unlock quite big change further down the line. Right, Maddie, you've got the big one. How do we solve the world burning and crumbling when we've got governments that are legislating in the opposite way? So can you answer that question?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
what's the role of technology in that?
I think for me, this is thinking about digital sustainability and ethics within digital is a new conversation they're having within SCVO. It started probably about a year ago. I've got an organisation called Neon Arts in Dundee that I need to plug, who really started us on the journey. And for us, it's all about having conversations. So at this stage, it's very much about having the conversations to think about what is the impact that our actual use of this technology, the use of this tech is having. What does that mean for us as an organisation? What does that mean for environment? What does that mean in the greater scheme of things? And really thinking about that, whilst actually the impact itself might be small in the grand scheme of things, our use of it, a lot of it comes out of, as soon as you take something out of the box, actually the making of the product is where a lot of the environmental impact comes from. So thinking about things around, for us as charities, around using refurbished tech, about renting tech, those really are two kind of key ways that it also makes tech more affordable as organisations. There's a lot of charities that are still using laptops that are not protected properly from cyber attacks, so they're leaving themselves open and making themselves vulnerable because they just simply can't afford to have the brand new latest laptops. But they probably could afford refurbished tech, or they could afford to rent that particular laptop, or to rent more up-to-date phones. So changing that attitude towards how we think about something new and shiny, I think, and generally going down that reuse and refurbishment. And it's something that we've talked about in the Open Work programme that Robyn's going to talk about. So it's about talking about that in a different context. The other thing really for me that's key around this is around actual data management. So what are we doing with our data? How are we storing it? Where is it being stored? And why are we keeping it? Which can be really key in our personal lives as well. I know on my iPhone I have pictures of a skirt I've seen that I thought I might like for Christmas, or a book I'm trying to remind myself to read. The fact that that is still on my iPhone and has been there for 2 years, it's being stored somewhere, it's being stored in the cloud. I use the cloud, so it's being stored, so there's energy that's taken to use to keep that stored somewhere. So for organisations, if we are not regularly, permanently deleting emails, if we are constantly keeping files and backing up files that we don't need, that belong to somebody who doesn't even work for us anymore, if we're doing all of that, then that's where we can actually start to do something different. So I'm going to be talking about that on the table really, is to actually think about what can we do about this, what steps can we take, and just really committing to making one change and starting there, I think. Right. So I know that doesn't solve the world's problems at all, but it's a start.
That's what we're here to do, isn't it? You mentioned the Open Working programme that Robyn runs. So we're going to finish up with Robyn, and we'll get a chance for a couple of questions from the room. So Robyn, can you give us, you run the Open Working programme, we're chatting a bit more about it, you get information for people in the room at the QR code. Can you tell us, why should charities work in the open? How does it give charities a competitive edge, and any advice you've got for people who want to work more open and transparent?
Yes, can. So, can you hear me okay if I'm at this distance? Excellent, thank you everyone at the back. One of the things I wanted to chat about was just how many conversations have you had today that have been really valuable in the work that you do. So it could be that you've told somebody else about work that your organisation does. It could be that somebody else has told you what they do and now you can collaborate, or at least you can signpost to whatever work they're doing. And how can we be having those conversations all the time? And how we can use digital to do that. So with the Open Working Programme, we're encouraging you to share small updates about your work regularly online. How do you save people time? People don't have time to read 20-page reports. I wish that they did. I wish that I had the time. Nobody does. We're a sector that is strapped for time, strapped for resources. How can we make sure that we're giving people relevant updates? So with Open Working, it's essentially using blog posts. Blog is a dirty word, so we call them week notes. But there are a few people who have been on the Open Working Programme or might be on it currently. In terms of how it helps you to communicate with your staff, with your funders, with other people in the sector. It helps you to be thought leaders in your field as well. If you're that person that's always talking about good practice in the youth workspace, you become known for that. And the more content you put out, the more that people know you for that. I've got some examples. I'll only do two because I feel like that it's nicer to show not tell, and I'm sure I'll go on about this at my table as well, so you're excited. But some examples where this has worked well was at a big charity. So somebody from the British Red Cross came on, and he worked with complicated mapping software. And what he wanted to do was speak to other people in his organisation about what he did, because it was technical and they didn't understand it. So over weeks and weeks, he was able to break down, here's what I do day to day, and here's how it influences your work. And in a huge organisation like that, that was so helpful in not working in silos. The other example I'm going to give is a small community organisation in Stonehaven in Aberdeenshire. It's called the Haven in Stonehaven, which is such a cute name. And they posted recently about how they were looking for advice on feminist governance. They've been posting every week since they came out of the Open Working Programme, and every week they have small updates. They might be for their community, other people in the sector. But this one was specifically because they want to embed feminist governance, and they were just asking for help. They were kind of saying, we've got this opportunity to do this. Who can help us? And if that conversation had happened behind closed doors, sure, they could have done some research, but this way they had experts come to them. They've built an audience, they've built a platform with which to engage with their communities, their funders, and everyone else.
Amazing, thank you. Brilliant.
Hi, thanks all. That's really got a great background and things. But one of the things I was thinking about is this in terms of security and sort of cloud storage and things, because obviously what would happen was if someone passes away or something like that, what happens to that data? Because if it's stored on some cyberspace somewhere, who has that intellectual control of things, and what sort of things we should have in place, if that makes sense?
So from an organisational perspective,
yeah, that's it, yes.
Anyone want to pick that up from the panel? Everyone's out. David, you look poised to pick that up.
I think we would probably approach it like any new tool or software that you're adopting in your organisation, to make sure that you're checking the terms and conditions and the privacy policy and data privacy policies, and they're obviously always evolving out that a lot of these solutions are being embedded with like AI features. But that's probably the starting point in terms of ensuring you've got a secure working environment for your team. It's ensuring that you've got a process to adopt new softwares, and it can be a new cloud-based solution that's needed for your organisation, making sure you're going through the right kind of processes to adopt the right tool that's good fit for purpose for yourself or your staff, like mentoring, not just the tool, but thinking about the kind of impact it's going to have on your teams. And I think there's a nice little checklist, step-by-step guide on the there's probably one on the SCVO website, but there's definitely one on the NCVO website, which is similar but in England. So yeah, like a nice step-by-step guide of like the kind of things you need to be thinking of to make sure that you're using something that's going to be aligned with your goals, and also it's going to be secure. That's probably quite a generic answer. Like I know you're talking specifically about cloud-based solutions, but probably like approach it holistically that way.
I mean, the other thing to say, so Alison in the SCVO cyber team is really good, and we'll have conversations here about these kind of exact things. Cyber Scotland website, do you know what the domain is off the top of your head?
I would actually want to say go and see Alison, she's downstairs.
Oh, there you go.
So that's what I would
There's
suggest.
going to be a queue behind Alison.
I think-
Take her a cup of tea, because she's
Yeah,
been there all
there you
day,
go.
but she will happily answer that question.
And there's also a good cyber checkup, isn't there, on the
Yes.
SCVO website. So.
Cool, right, another question. There you go, it's right next to you, that's handy.
So, what's the difference between open working and micro-blogging that we used to see on Twitter back when Twitter was more active? Like, what's the big difference? 'Cause what you described sounds exactly how.
I'm trying desperately not to say less fascists.
I said Twitter, not.
I guess the answer is not much. The point is to have that level of content that is between a 140 character tweet and a 20-page report. What is that middle ground? So the blog post, the week note might be 200 words, it might live on LinkedIn, it might live on a blog, you might share it in kind of various places. But it is that microblogging. It's like sharing little and often is better than sharing nothing at all. That's better than nothing answer, but yeah, very similar.
Just as well to say, Robyn mentioned the open working toolkit we've got, which will kind of break this stuff down, but it's in the link when you scan the QR code, it'll take you to the open working toolkit and it kind of gives you a guide to do this stuff internally. I think Robyn touched on this stuff as well, is that we've had a lot of funders come through the programme, so like people like Robyn Grant Foundation, Inspiring Scotland, it's supported by Robertson and the lottery at the moment, and more funders are keen to see open working. Having sat in grants committees, it's like a grants report or an application will only tell you so much. And if you're an organisation working in open, it builds trust with your funder, you're probably more likely to be refunded if that grants officer knows what you're doing, rather than just, we all fall into the trap of putting jargon in the report that we send, or now we just use AI to write it for us. And that kind of generic thing that's going back to funders is very, very difficult to get that kind of intangible stuff, and that's where the working comes in. I'm less fascist. Right, I think we would take for one more question and then we need to go into the workshops.
Hi. Obviously, right now there's a whole.
Oh, I think your mic is cut out. There's another mic there if we need to.
Hello?
Oh, right, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just need to hold it closer. What I found is that people, it's almost the opposite problem, and people are trying to use AI to almost level the playing field in terms of skills and experience. So, and what we're trying to do is, whilst bearing in mind all the ethics and GDPR around AI and have safe practices and everything, without making people taking away a tool that they're using to kind of keep up with people who are able to write and do things to a level that they don't actually need help from an AI. Whereas these people I feel more a part of that kind of meeting or level, but because I'm using an AI tool, but they're not necessarily developing the skills and experience that they need in order to actually be at that level. How would, as in, have any suggestions on how to tackle that issue? I'm not sure.
Jen's going to pick that up. It's a very eager hand.
This is something that I'm really passionate about. I think it's about changing what that level is, and if we've got AI as a tool that we can use going forward, then prompt engineering will become a sort of core skill, and potentially in the future. I don't think we're near the stage of completely replacing humans yet, and we've still got those unique characteristics about us that we very much need. But I do think that your ability to work with AI is going to be an essential skill going forward, the same way that Microsoft Word is. Like you mentioned at the start, we might start to see job descriptions that say competent and can use AI in a work capacity. But I think on that point, I think the skills themselves are going to change.
Yeah, totally.
Because you can still make ChatGPT tell you rubbish.
Yeah. Worth saying as well that the lottery made a statement maybe a couple of weeks ago that they are okay with AI being used in applications. I think that was quite bold of them to say that. So, and most people can spot a million miles away if the whole thing has been done on AI. It's usually quite obvious. Well, there's a hand like that. You need to use the microphone. Sorry.
That's great that a heritage
tomorrow night with the Heritage Lottery, and they were pretty much but then you use that personal support for a project, and that's sort of bringing obviously, and that's where individuals come in to support the application. But
yeah. I mean, there's a broader thing, and again, without plugging the open working programme too much, where we need to have a kind of human touch and an ongoing relationship around funding. It can't just be one-off transactional applications, and a lot of it's set up in that way, and it's massively competitive and more than it's ever been. And AI is just part of that bigger picture that needs to be changed. Right, we're going to solve the energy crisis and AI and funding all in this room.